The first bulking tip that I have for hard gainers is that you want to stimulate your muscles, don't annihilate them. The fastest and easiest way to build muscle is by training as much as you can but still recover. So for skinny guys, I recommend 3 to 4 training days using a push-pull leg split. I find it's the best split you can use to maximize muscle mass and recovery. And if you haven't seen my whole entire massive push-pull legs playlist that I just put out the last couple weeks, you can check that out here and find out everything you need to know about, push-pull leg split. Another important point I need to make is that because you're naturally skinny, you need to focus on 2 key areas. The first is your diet, and the second is your training, of course. So we'll go over the best macros for hard gainers now. As for diet, I recommend you take your current body weight and you multiply it by 16. This is a good starting point to figure out how many calories you need to actually build muscle. Let's say you're 170 pounds. 170 times 16 is 2,720 calories. After that, you need to determine what your macros will be. Say your protein at body weight, which is gonna be 170, fats can be as low as 0.25 grams per pound of body weight. If you take 170, you multiply by 0.25, and that's gonna give you about 40-ish grams of fat. Finally, carbs can just be the remainder of your total calories. Here's what your overall calorie and macronutrients are gonna look like. Calories, 2720, protein, 170 grams, fat, 40 grams, and then carbs, 420 grams. From here, you're basically just gonna weigh in every single week and see if you're losing, maintaining, or gaining weight. If you aren't getting the weight you want, you increase your calories by 10% and you keep going. Whenever you increase your calories, keep your protein the same and increase your carbs or fats to drive your surplus. Hopefully this makes sense, but feel free to ask me more follow-up questions in the comment section below. Now let's move on to training. Transition of destiny over here. There we go, transition. Let's see how people like that, honestly, shit. So a workout plan for hard gainers, since you're naturally skinny, using a high volume approach just isn't a good idea. The main reason for this is pretty simple. High volume training burns a ton of calories already. If you're skinny, this is counterproductive as you'll need to eat more calories than normal to fuel that kind of training. You wanna keep the volume low and push close to failure. That way you can stimulate your muscles and train efficiently without doing a bunch of junk volume that doesn't aid in muscle growth. The best way that I recommend this is actually pretty easy, honestly. For each exercise you do, you start with the weight you can do for 8 reps or so. If you did 10 reps on the bench press last week, your goal is to beat 10 reps this week. Once you get to 12 reps on an exercise, increase that weight by 5 pounds for compound exercises and 2.5 pounds for isolation exercises. Basically, you're working in the 8 to 12 rep range and adding weight once you hit 12 reps. Literally just keep doing this until you can't beat your reps on a movement for 3 workouts. Once that happens, swap it out for something else and push for rep PRs on that new exercise like normal. Following this progression makes training a lot more fun as you're always trying to beat your reps and kick some ass. I absolutely prefer this to doing a million sets that's gonna beat your body up and leave you fatigued. As for the training split, here's what I recommend for your setup. Since you only have access to a bench, barbell, and dumbbells, you'll be limited on what movements you can do. But luckily, we can make it work. For your push day, something like a dumbbell bench press, dumbbell lateral raises for shoulders, real delt swings for your rear delts, and then something for triceps. You could be push downs, PJR pullovers, whatever you want. Then for pull day, we start with something for upper back, like a barbell row, move on to something like a dumbbell lat row for your lats, dumbbell shrugs for your traps, and then barbell curls. And then leg day, Romanian deadlift for your hamstrings, split squats for your quads and glutes, and then calf raises for calves. And while this training split is pretty basic, just use whatever exercises that you feel comfortable doing, you feel like you get a lot of muscle gains from them, and just push for the, those rep PRs week after week. That's literally all you have to do. I got a few follow-up questions after this from my follower that I answered as well. Here's what he had to say. And with the 8 reps, it's just 1 set. It's not 2 or 3 sets. Yeah, it's just 1 all-out set. You really only need 1 to 2 hard sets per muscle group to stimulate a muscle for hypertrophy. Push to failure with proper execution, and you're not gonna wanna do another set. Trust me. I gotta try and work out how much I can lift for 8 reps. I guess that's just trial and error. As for finding the correct weights, you should just add weight until you find a weight that's pretty easy for 8 reps for your first 2 weeks. There's no need to go straight to failure. Just get used to the program and find weights that are challenging without going overboard. Judging by the push-pull legs program you've given me, you recommend a dumbbell bench press over a barbell bench press, or is it not too important which one? For muscle mass, it's important to find exercises that stress your musculature in the way that they're designed. The barbell bench doesn't allow you to train the chest in the way that it's meant to function very well. But with dumbbells, you can get a huge stretch at the bottom and your hands can come in at the top. That's why it's recommended for building muscle in the chest over a barbell. It trains the pecs through adduction, which is their primary function. You can load more with the barbell, sure, but if you want to train as efficiently as possible for muscle mass, dumbbells, cables, and machines are actually king, which is kind of crazy, now that I'm saying it out loud, but that's the case. Building muscle is incredibly simple, but most people just don't want to train hard enough, consistently enough to make it happen. Also, I cannot stress this enough. If you don't need to grow, it's just not going to happen. You can't build a house without the proper materials, and the same goes for muscle. You have to fuel it somehow. Eat in a surplus, train hard, recover, repeat. That's it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below, and to find out more, check out this video next to build more muscle.